The Montana sky stretched wide and endless above Samuel Carter, a man whose silence had become his truest companion. Day after day, he worked the land his late father left him, a lonely ranch that sprawled across the plains, more dirt than grass, more dust than comfort. Neighbors were far, and even farther were any signs of laughter or warmth. He'd been called the loner by townsfolk who saw him ride in for supplies with eyes cast low and voice barely above a whisper. Yet behind his hardened face was a simple yearning, a longing that clawed at his chest in the quiet hours when the wind whistled through the empty windows of his house. Samuel wanted someone to share the silence with, someone who would understand the ache of solitude. So when he placed an ad for a mail-order bride, his words had been plain: hard-working man seeks companion. Ranch is quiet but steady. Kindness more valued than beauty. Will provide and protect. He didn't write about the nights he spoke to the stars or the mornings where the sound of his own boots on the wooden floor made the house feel less hollow. He didn't confess that his soul was tired of echoing against itself. He just asked for kindness. And he waited. On a warm afternoon, the stagecoach rumbled into the small, dusty town where Samuel stood with his hat in hand, heart pounding like a drum. He was a tall, wiry man, his face lined with years of sun and wind, his hands scarred by rope and work. He had imagined this moment in secret, wondered if she'd be petite, quiet, maybe nervous like him. But when the wagon door creaked open and a figure stepped down, Samuel's breath caught. She was a woman of great stature, broad-shouldered, towering nearly a head taller than him, her frame twice his size, with arms that looked as if they could wrestle a steer. Her dress pulled taut across her form, her cheeks flushed from the journey, and her dark eyes held a spark both tender and unyielding. The crowd at the depot shifted, murmurs rising. Some smirked, others laughed. "That the bride?" someone whispered. Samuel heard the snickers, felt their sting. His heart sank, not out of shame for her, but from fear she would see his uncertainty and turn away. But then she looked at him. Not past him. Not through him. She looked at him, straight into his eyes, as though she had traveled not miles but lifetimes just to arrive here. She extended her hand, strong and steady. "Samuel Carter?" she asked, her voice low and rich, carrying both gentleness and command. He swallowed hard, nodded, and took her hand. Her grip was warm, grounding, alive. "I'm Eleanor," she said simply. The townsfolk watched with curiosity, some shaking their heads, others whispering cruel things. But Samuel didn't let go of her hand. Instead, he tipped his hat and said softly, "Welcome home." And in that moment, though brief, Eleanor's lips curved into a smile that was not timid, not ashamed, but radiant with quiet pride. The first weeks were not easy. Samuel, a man of few words, didn't know how to fill the silences between them. Eleanor, bold in presence but gentle in heart, moved through his small ranch house like a force of nature, rearranging the kitchen, scrubbing the floors, patching leaks in the roof, and once even lifting a stubborn mule's hoof when Samuel couldn't coax it. Her strength startled him at times, but more startling was her laughter. It rang through the rooms, warm and round, filling every hollow space his solitude had carved. He had forgotten what laughter sounded like. He had forgotten how good it felt to share bread at the table and not eat alone. One evening, as the sun bled gold across the prairie, Samuel caught her sitting on the porch, staring into the horizon. Her hands, large and calloused from years of work, rested still in her lap. For the first time, he noticed how tired her eyes looked beneath her steady gaze. "Do you regret it?" he asked quietly, almost ashamed to speak the words. She turned, puzzled. "Coming here," he clarified. "Choosing me." Eleanor studied him for a long moment. Then she said, "Samuel, I've spent my whole life being told I was too much. Too tall. Too strong. Too loud. Men wanted someone delicate, someone who'd make them feel big. I never fit their picture. But when I read your letter, you didn't ask for pretty words or painted promises. You asked for kindness. And I thought, finally, someone who sees what matters." Her voice cracked then, and Samuel felt a knot in his throat. He wanted to tell her she wasn't too much, she was exactly enough. But the words tangled in his chest, so instead he reached for her hand. She let him hold it, and in that silence something shifted between them. Something deep and unspoken, like roots threading themselves into soil. Days turned into months, and the ranch began to change. With Eleanor's strength and Samuel's steady patience, fences were mended, fields cultivated, the home brightened. The townsfolk who once whispered began to see the quiet force of their union. Children would wave when Eleanor came to town, and she'd grin wide, unashamed. Samuel noticed how her joy drew others in, how her kindness spread like fire through dry grass. Where once he was the loner, he was now the man with the wife who could outwork any cowboy but still make the best pie in the county. The turning point came one winter when a blizzard swept across the plains. A neighboring family, the Morgans, were caught unprepared, their roof collapsing under the snow. Samuel and Eleanor saddled their horses and rode through the storm, the wind slicing like knives. Eleanor, strong as an ox, hauled beams off the Morgans' children, shielding them with her own body. Samuel saw her standing there in the howling snow, towering like a guardian, her face set with fierce compassion. The children clung to her, their sobs muffled in her arms. And something inside Samuel broke open, an awe so profound it nearly brought him to his knees. He realized then that love wasn't about fitting an image or answering to whispers, it was about finding someone who made the world kinder, braver, more alive. When spring came and the snow melted, the Morgans told everyone how Eleanor saved their children. For the first time, the laughter around her name was filled not with ridicule but with gratitude and respect. Samuel, usually shy in crowds, stood tall beside her, proud not just of what she had done but of who she was. That night, as they sat by the fire, Samuel finally found his voice. "Eleanor," he said, his hand trembling as he reached for hers, "I thought I wanted someone to ease my loneliness. But what I found was someone who taught me how to live again. You were never too much for me. If anything, you saved me." Eleanor's eyes glistened, and she leaned her forehead against his. "And you, Samuel Carter, saw me for who I am when no one else would. That is all I ever wanted." The fire crackled, the wind whispered through the eaves, and the house, once so hollow, felt full to bursting with warmth. In the years that followed, the ranch thrived not because of profit or land but because of the love it held. Travelers spoke of the Carters, the couple who welcomed strangers, who worked side by side, who laughed loudly and lived honestly. And though Samuel and Eleanor had begun as unlikely as thunder meeting still skies, together they became a beacon, a reminder that love is not about appearances, nor about fitting into the narrow molds the world tries to press us into. It is about kindness that roots deep, strength that shelters, and the courage to see and be seen. And so, the loner rancher was no longer alone. For when his mail-order bride stepped off that wagon, twice his size and twice as bold as life, she brought with her not just companionship, but the gift of showing him, and everyone who knew them, that love is most powerful when it defies expectation, and most beautiful when it makes us better than we were before.